Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvashavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So if you recall, I refer to this at the beginning as a Nididhyasana Grantha or Nididhyasana Stotra. And there's various types of texts, right? Sometimes a teacher will create their own text, as I did in Boston. I put together a bunch of quotes. I've done that a few times. Create your own book. Most of the time, a teacher takes a text because it provides a structure from going from one area of investigation to another, right? It kind of creates a structure for the vichara, for the inquiry. This is a Nididhyasana text, so each one is meant to be a standalone meditation. It builds on the first, 3 or 4. We lingered on the first 2, 3, 4 shlokas, but each subsequent shloka does not present a new prakriya, does not present really a new method of unfoldment, right? It's not a lot of new information. So in an infinite timeline, we would stop and savor each shloka in a meditative context. We do not live in an infinite timeline. And I know some of these are, if we went into the detail that we could go into just to present the vision, it would be somewhat repetitive, because in meditation you don't mind the repetition because you want to see what's being said and presented. So we may be going through these again fairly quickly to get the gist of these. There's a lot more I could say about all these, but I realize it's a lot to ask. It's late now, and we canceled meditation tomorrow to do more classes. So I want to give you the takeaway on what these verses say, necessarily without going into all the detail that I have previously. I hope that's okay. And it may leave us some time for Q&A tomorrow morning sometime. So we're looking at verse 7. Yata neka chakshuf prakasho ravirna Yata eka chakshuf prakasho ravirna Kramena prakashi karoti prakasham Kramena prakashi karoti prakasham Aneka dhiyo yastataika prabodha Aneka dhiyo yastataika prabodha Sanityo palabdhi swarupo hamatma Sanityo palabdhi swarupo pahatma Yata aneka chakshuhu prakashaha ravihi na kramena prakashi karoti prakasham Aneka dhiyaha yaha tata eka prabodha saha nitya upalabdhi swarupaha aham. So previously it was said that Atma blesses the activities of the mind and senses. This implies kartritvam for Atma. If it's blessing, then how is it doing it? Is it an agent doing it? Does it do it one by one, etc.? How does that happen? And here Hastamalakiyam says, no, activating and blessing the mind and the senses is not an action done by Atma. It's simply that in the presence of Atma, the mind becomes sentient. Atma remains akarta. In the Bhagavad Gita, you see Sri Krishna talking about Atmanaha akartatvam, that the self is a non-agent, a non-doer. Because all functionality of agency, it's a funny way to say it, the ability to act belongs to the upadhi. And so Atma Chaitanya does nothing. Right? And when the minds are blessed by Atma, it's not really an event in time. So there's no sequential order. I bless you, I bless you, I bless you. It's a curious thing to wonder about. I never had this question, but I guess he needs to, he's interested to get this point across. So, yatha ravihi, just as the sun, aneka chakshuhu prakashaha, that sun which is the light for countless eyes, na prakasham prakashikaroti, does not bring to light objects to be illumined kramena, sequentially. There's no krama, there's no particular sequence there, right? It shines on everything equally. So too, tata, yaha eka prabodaha, Prabodh has a big smile on his face. So too, that which is the one awareness, prabodha, anekaha diha prakashi karoti, a twi affix, if you know what that is, does not illumine the countless minds. The one awareness does not illumine the countless minds sequentially, but rather does the Atma does not illumine the minds one by one. Atma is simply a awareful presence which shines, right? And there is no, in other words, there is no time slicing. You know, anybody know what time slicing is? Time slicing is a computer term to a multitasking implementation. So it's probably different now that there's many, the computer chips has gotten much more sophisticated in this, but how does the computer seem to be doing a lot of things at the same time? It's downloading something, you're typing, there's a clock that's moving. It seems to be doing a lot of things simultaneously. Back in the day when there was only one CPU, the CPU could attend to only one thing at a time. And so the algorithm, the OS created, directed the attention of the CPU, the central processing unit, the main chip, to attend for a slice of time here, a slice of time there. It'll give a few microseconds or whatnot to your for typing. I mean, it's interrupted, so if you're typed, there will be no lag to it. But the idea is that it directs its attention to various things so quickly that it seems like everything's happening simultaneously, right? But first is attending to this, first is attending to this. It's like cooking. If you see a short order chef, another cooking drishtanta, right? He's stirring this and chopping this and mixing this, and the mind goes from here, the attention goes from here to here to here to here to here, and in the end, it looks he's creating the whole meal at once, but he's giving each section of it a bit of time, and then put something on to boil. While that's waiting to boil, you do this, etc. Right? That's what he's meaning here, and the antakarana does that. The mind uses a time slicing algorithm by turning one attention to one thing, then another, and the focus shifts from one thing to another. In other words, the mind antakarana is stateful, right? First it attends to this, then attends to this, then attends to this, and attends to this. Atma Chaitanya does no such thing. Atma is focusless awareness, right? And it simply shines, blessing all that the mind presents, regardless of the object in front of it. Imagine the sun that is capricious, unpredictable, driven by whim or impulse. You say, today I'm not going to illumine the moon. I am going to illumine the moon, but I'm not going to illumine Mars because I don't like red. I don't feel like I want to illumine red today. Atma Chaitanya doesn't say this. Atma doesn't say, I'm not going to illumine the Rajasika red thought. I'm going to illumine only Sattvica white thoughts. It'll just illumine everything. The mind, just as the sun illumines everything, the mind will illumine a quiet mind. Atma Chaitanya will illumine a quiet mind. It will equally illumine an agitated mind. It will illumine a perception of a rose. It'll illumine the perception of sewage. It'll equally illumine knowledge, and it will illumine ignorance. Right? in all minds at all times, right? And this is the it's not like Oprah. You get a car, and you get a car, and you get a car, you get a car. Some of you know what I'm talking about. You get awareness, and you get awareness, and you get awareness. No, it's not like that at all. And since this is a nididhyasana, shloka, this is the type of meditation you can create out of the shloka. I am stateless awareness, free of any state of mind or heart. In my luminous presence, all states of mind and heart come and go. I am always here, shining, present, timeless awareness. Right? Because this is meant to be brought into meditation. Saha nitya upalabdhi swarupaha. Saha nitya upalabdhi swarupaha aham atma. I am that ever-present awareness. Verse 8. Vivasvat prabhatam yatarupamaksham. Vivasvat prabhatam yatarupamaksham. Pragrinhati nabhatamevam vivasvam. Nabhatamevam vivasvan. Yadabhata abhasaya tyakshamekaha. Yadabhata abhasasya tyaktamejaha. Sanityopalabdhi swarupo hamatma. I told you there's no telling what melody will come out of these vocal cords. Now this is another beautiful nididhyasana verse, but it's a bit oddly structured, and the typo in my translation does not help at all. So I'll point that out. Visvat prabhatam yata rupam aksham pragrinhati na abhatam evam vivasvan yad abhataha abhasayati aksham ekaha saha nitya upalabdhi swarupaha aham atma. Just as yata aksham, here aksham means the eyes, just as the eyes, pragrinhati, knows or grasps form, rupam, vivasvat prabhatam, which is illumined, the form that's illumined by the sun. So vivasvat means the surya prakasha, the light of the sun. Na abhatam, the eye does not perceive objects that are not illumined by the sun. All right, so to paraphrase, the eye does not perceive forms that are not illumined by the sun, say on a midnight at a moonless night. Na abhatam. The presence of the eyes and the object are not sufficient for pratyaksha, but only in the presence of a light source can we have perception. The sun provides the all-pervading light, and this all-pervading light is unnoticed. So you can look at the sun, not recommended, and you see it. But when you see an object, you don't say, oh, there's the sunlight and there's the sunlight. It goes unnoticed, but it still facilitates the perception of the object. And awareness is like that. It goes unnoticed, but it's a necessary component of perception. So here awareness is being likened to the sun. So the meaning is, sun illumines objects. Eyes see the illumined objects. Eyes do not see any unillumined objects. So Hastamalakiyam has introduced three things here. He said, there's a drishya rupa, there's a thing that perceived object. There's a chakshus, the eye, right, the perceiver. And then there's surya, the necessary illumining sun. Is that sufficient for perception? No. Because they're all jada, they're all chaitana. You need awareness there. So there is a necessary fourth component for perception, atma chaitanya. The first three are necessary but not sufficient. And so he's expressing the understanding that sunlight is present in every visual perception, and subtle formless sunlight can be appreciated in every perception without seeing the sunlight distinctly per se. You see that? And so visual perception is by the grace of the sun, but we don't distinctly see the sun. And so to awareness is present in every cognition, every emotion, and the subtle formless awareness can be appreciated, like the sunlight can be appreciated in every experience without quote-unquote seeing awareness. It's omnipresent, it's necessary for perception, but I don't see the sunlight and I don't see awareness. But I can appreciate its presence, right? So I can recognize it without seeing it, so to say. So there is no Vishesha Jnanam, no particular knowledge without Samanya Chaitanya, the general all-illumining awareness. So Evam, thus, in that same matter, what he's going to be saying here is, the sun is, so he uses the name for the sun that is the presiding deity of the sun. The sun is presiding deity of the eyes. The sun illumines objects. The eyes see objects that are illumined by the sun, but awareness also illumines both the eyes and the sun. It's a bit convoluted, I think. So Ekaha Vivaswan, the one sun, the presiding deity of the eyes, yet abhataha, that yet means Chaitanya, yena Chaitanyena abhataha, so that the one sun, which itself is illumined by or pervaded by the awareness, and this is where my translation we introduced a mistake. We should not say the sun, if you look on page 9, I think, the sun illumined by awareness which the self illumines the eye is not a sentence. If you say the sun illumined by awareness which is the self, the awareness, comma, which is the self, comma, that sun facilitated or illumined by awareness, that sun illumines the eye. That's the idea. So in other words, the one sun is illumined, pervaded by awareness, and then that sun illumines the eyes, brings the light to the sun, the eye. So aksham abhasayati, this sun which is pervaded by awareness illumines the eyes. Aksham abhatayati, you can say this means that the sun is able to assist the eyes in illumining form. I tell you, it's a little convoluted here. I'm not helping much here. So the sun, along with the eyes, is able to illumine form because of another invisible factor, namely awareness. That's what he's getting at here. And so again, paraphrasing. The sun is the presiding deity over the eyes. The sun illumines objects. The eyes see objects that are illumined by the sun. But awareness illumines both the eyes and the sun. So which of the four factors am I? Am I the objects? Am I the eyes? Am I the sun? No, all of these are Chaitanya Prakashyam. All of these are illumined by awareness. And I am that Swaprakasha Atma Chaitanya. I am that awareness, that self-shining, self-revealing Asanga awareness, which is the necessary primary factor in all perception. That's the simplest way to look at this here. There's more detail, but this is fine for this late at night. Let's look at verse 9. Yata surya eko swanakesh chalasu. Yata surya eko swanekash chalasu. Stiraswapyanan vagvibhavya swarupaha. Stiraswapyanan vagvibhavya swarupaha. Chalasu prabhinnasu dishveva mekaha. Sanityopalabdis swarupo hamatma. Sanityopalabdis swarupo hamatma. Again, who knows what melody comes out? Yata suryaha ekaha apsu anekaha chalasu stirasu api ananvag vibhavya swarupaha chalasu prabhinnasu dishu eva ekaha saha nitya upalabdhi swarupaha aham atma. So let me give you the executive summary here again. Again, this is meant to be taken into nididhyasana. There's no real new prakriya here, no teaching. The one sun is reflected, appearing as many in water that is still or in motion. Okay? But the state of the water does not affect the sun. That's what it's saying. And so to the one awareness is reflected in many minds, some of which are silent, quiet, equanimous, and some are agitated. But regardless of the state of the mind, the awareness that's reflected in there is not touched by that. That's the gist of this shloka. So yata ekaha suryaha, just as one sun, api, even though anekaha, nana api, aneka means many, even though appearing as many and varied and diverse, anvag vibhavya swarupaha. I won't go into the samasa, it's kind of complicated, it's very interesting, but it means that one sun does not have a nature that's in keeping with the state of the water. That's what it means. It sounds better in Sanskrit than it does in English. So in other words, the nature of the sun is the sun does not absorb the various states of water, right? The water may be agitated, but the sun is not. In other words, so there's no adhyasa, right? The attributes of the reflecting medium do not touch the sun. And so to awareness, the calmness or the agitation of the mind does not affect the awareness, because in truth there's no adhyasa. Right? So this is a vision of a jnani. Let the mind be as it is. Puja Swamiji said, you can be endlessly entertained by what your mind presents, right? And you might as well be, because it's going to present all, hello, Mr. Fly. Your mind's going to present all sorts of stuff to you, right? And if you say, oh no, I'm that thought, you're lost, right? But if you're able to just observe it, and you don't have to say, I'm the witness, but you just, it's a noticeable thing. The state of the mind is a noticeable thing. In a calm mind, you're more easily able to notice the thoughts going by, but in an agitated mind, that's more challenging, because that agitation seems to be overwhelming, right? And then you can just let that pass, go say namaha, namaha, namaha. But this is what we're trying to do in the meditation. If you can understand, if you observe in real time your relationship with the one mantra, Om, during meditation, then you can apply you can bring that same observation to any thought at any time. Because whatever the thought, whatever the state of mind, all thought is underpinned by silent awareness. So there's one way to look at thought is I illumine the thought, and I am not that which I illumine. But the other way to look at it, as we were intimating during meditation, is that the only things there in any thought, and really any thought means any perception, any experience, you only know what's projected on the screen of the mind, right? And so you have an experience, you have a memory, you have a thought, you have an emotion. You can understand that. It's another way to look at thought, that the only thing that's there is the silent awareness upon which is superimposed a thought form. A chitta vritti, ata yoga anushasanam, yoga chitta vritti nirodha. Anybody know? Yeah, so it's the first two sutras of the Yoga Sutras. And the definition is yoga is the control or cessation of the chitta vrittis, of the thought forms, right? And so just like our wave, you can say a wave is simply limitless water plus a superimposed form. And so the water is the adhisthana, the substratum, and the form is superimposed upon it. You can have the same understanding in meditation as that regarding I am the silent awareness upon which this particular changing evanescent thought form is currently manifesting, and I don't change when the thought form changes. The water doesn't change when the wave changes. I don't change when the thought wave changes, right? And so it's beautiful because the thought may seem real. If I am aware of the thought, then the thought and I seem to abide on the same order of reality. If I see thought as merely forms superimposed upon awareness, just like the cup is superimposed upon paper, then you can see what is stable and what is transient. Right? It's very beautiful. And the only thing that's permanent there is awareness. And for something to be able to take on any form, it itself has to be formless. For water to take the shape of any particular form plus the entire ocean, water itself has no intrinsic form. For awareness to, as though, take on the form of all these thoughts, awareness itself is formless. That's another beautiful appreciation. And so, in truth, during this verse as a meditation, there is no superimposition. The awareness does not take on the attributes of what's superimposed upon it. So, evam, in the same way, ekaha, the one atma, chalasu prabhinnasu dhishu, does not take on the attributes whether there's a moving thought or a quiet thought. We can categorize thought as tamasika, rajasika, or sattvika. Right? Tamasika, oh, I'm so dull. I'm so sleepy. Rajasika, I'm so agitated. I'm so anxious. Sattvika, I'm so calm. I'm so pure. Right? And we often want, it seems more enjoyable to have a sattvika mind than a rajasika or tamasika mind, right? And the whole movement towards, in the spirituality, the journey of spirituality in the Bhagavad Gita is to increase your sattva quotient. Because the more sattva your mind enjoys as an attribute, it's curious because the mind itself is called sattva. The mind itself is called sattva because it evolves from the sattva guna of Maya, is unchanging, and sattva guna has the ability to reflect awareness. But looking at gunas as qualities, I haven't heard anybody teach like this, but to me, I can't think of it any other way. When you say the mind is sattva, so when you say antakarana shuddhi, sometimes you read sattva shuddhi, purity of the sattva of the mind. But when it's referred to like that, it's not referring to a changing attribute, it's the very stuff that the mind is made of. But as a quality of the mind, the sattva can become sattvika. The mind can become more pure, if you will, right? The ragas and dveshas don't push and pull it. There's little agitation, what's called chitta naishchalya. So the purity of the mind, the mala, that's referred to when you say antakarana shuddhi, the purity of the mind, is really twofold. You can think of it as ragas and dveshas, the binding nature of likes and likes, and also chitta naishchalya, agitation of chitta chalanam, agitation of the mind. So we want a mind that's available to us, and a mind that enjoys chitta naishchalya, a relative equanimity. And also one that is not consumed with ragas and dveshas. It's a mind that's available. And a mind that is filled with this sattva guna, in the sense, is more readily holds this knowledge, right? And so the more the mind you can gain, the mind can gain a state of relative poise and presence, right? There's something to be said about, as the old book said, be here now, right? Because the only thing that's here is you right now. And what the reality of time is your very presence. Remember I said that anything that is bifurcatable, that can be chopped in half, can be disassembled, has no inherent reality. What duration of time is real? no duration of time is real because it's all mithya, because any duration of time can be further subdivided into smaller and smaller chunks of time. So, somebody once said, time is the way, God invented time to keep everything from happening at the same time, right? But what's the reality of time? The only reality is the timeless moment, right? A durationless moment. And you give reality to the timeless moment. Your very presence is it lends existence to the moment, right? The only thing that's here is one timeless existence. And time itself is just notional. But if the mind is relatively pure in that sense, then it loses the ability to lead you astray, right? Because of the intensity of agitating thoughts or a dull thought, dull-mindedness, it can lead you astray. But at the same time, at times we want the mind to be dull. Because if the mind doesn't become tamoguna pradhana, if it doesn't have an abundance of tamas, you'll never fall asleep. If it doesn't enjoy rajas, you won't be able to think creatively and dynamically, right? And but we do want some underlying sattva to be so that we can have some presence of mind. So sattva, if you have a sattvika buddhi, antakarana, you can have a natural inner spaciousness, a natural presence of mind, and that can be equated or combined with a contemplative disposition. Right, and a spacious mind, an open heart, a contemplative disposition are all conducive to gaining and holding this knowledge. But if the mind is tamasika or rajasika, dull or agitated or sattvika, they're all drishya manasa gunas. They're all attributes of the mind. They're not attributes of the witness of the mind. And in that context, you hear the word gunatitaha, right? That which transcends the gunas. I've had people ask me, how do I become gunatitaha? How do I transcend the gunas? Lady, you're already there. You have to recognize it. Atma is already transcendent to the gunas. The gunas apply to manifest creation. Atma is not a manifest thing which enjoys attributes. Atma is nirguna. It has no specific attributes. So gunatitatvam, the status of being transcendent to the gunas, if you understand that model, is never achievable. It's only discoverable. And saha nitya upalabdhi sarupaha aham atma. I am that atma. Think we can do one more before we all fall asleep? Let's do it. Let's go to 10. Ganachanna drishtir ganachanna markam. Ganachanna drishtir ganachanna markam. Yata nishprabham manyate chati mudaha. Nishprapan vimudaha tata baddhavat bhatiyo mudha drishtehe sanityo palabdhi swarupo hamatma. Ghanachana drishtihi Ganachanam arkam yata nishprabham manyate cha atimudaha tata bhadavat bhati yaha mudaha drishtehe saha nitya upalabdhi swarupaha ahamakma. Summary. For the one who has faulty vision, ignorance covers the self, which leads to a sense of limitation and bondage. Just as when the clouds obscure the vision of the sun, the deluded person thinks that the sun has no light. The translation is more convoluted. This is just the idea. Right? So it's ignorance covers the vision, and it leads to a sense of bandha, of bondage, and someone who thinks that who's confused thinks that when the clouds obscure the sky, his vision of the sun is obscured by the clouds, then he thinks there's no light to the sun. Yata just says atimudaha, an utterly confused person, ganachana drishtihi, one whose vision is covered by clouds, manyate, janati, thinks, arkam, that the sun is ganachanam, is covered by the clouds, that the sun that is covered by the clouds is nishprabhatam, is prabharahitam, is devoid of light. That's the example. Right? I don't know, you have to be pretty silly. But, I don't see the sun, and therefore, it's not shining, so I don't see it shining, so it must not be luminous. It's the commentator says, Atimudaha ravi aprakasham pashyati iti. The fool imagines a non-luminous sun. Tata, so too, tena prakarena, in the same manner, a mudha drishdehe, for one who has faulty or incorrect vision, whose vision of reality of oneself is covered by ignorance, for that one, the mudha drishtihi, the one who does not have the, shall we say, the arsha drishtihi, does not have the vision of the rishis of ancient India, that person, for that person, the Atma, bhati, appears baddhavat, to be as though bound. Someone who doesn't understand thinks it's really bound, Atma is really bound, but at the same time, it's only vat, as though. There's several affixes vat. Here is the indeclinable vat that means like. We have bhagavat, but that's declinable. Bhagavan means bhagaha asya asti iti bhagavan, bhagavat. So the affix vat can mean possessing. Like Hanumat is Hanuman, which means one who has a chin, a big chin, I guess, or a broken chin, somebody told me, I'm not sure. Or Bhagavan is one who has bhaga, these 6 glories of Bhagavan. But here this vat means eva, it means like. So I find myself to be unacceptable, I find myself to be lacking, I find myself to be mortal. And that is all due to avidyaja adhyasa, ignorance-born adhyasa. Any and all limitations belong to the anatma, not to atma. So, you, atma, are perfectly fine, even in the presence and even in spite of this karya karana sanghata's doshas, of the perceived faults of the body and the mind. These limitations belong to your costume, your upadi, not to you. You can think of these limitations are your vibhuti, right? You can wear them proudly in a sense. Like the clown costume. Remember we talked about the clown costume. Imagine the upadi, your mind, and the qualities thereof, as the costume that you wear. A clown doesn't worry that his big rubber nose is too big. He doesn't worry that his pants are too baggy, or that the hair, the cut of his hair is too wild, or that his lapel squirts water. The flower in his lapel squirts water. You know what I'm talking about? The cliche is that I had one of these when I was a little kid. You fill a little bulb up with water, and you put it's a plastic, and there's a plastic flower, the tube goes up, and it waters in the bulb. And you say, "Hey, Mom, want to smell the flower?" And she goes, "Oh, yes, of course, little boy." And she goes down to smell it, and you squeeze the bulb, and it squirts her face. That's what clowns have that, No, these are all his vibhutis. He revels in it, right? And so this body, this mind, does not likely conform to someone's or society's notions of normalcy or beauty. What society tells you is perfect, the perfect way to present yourself, right? Commercials. The purpose of commercials is to instill insecurities so they can sell you their product, right? Yeah. Or desires. You didn't know you needed this, but now you do. Now you absolutely know this, because of course, you cannot be what you cannot buy. That's not my line. That's a line from a podcast, actually. But the truth is that the body and mind are perfectly acceptable in their imperfection. Let me see, I think I lost my place here. You as Atma and you as Jiva are imperfectible. You as an individual and you as Atma are imperfectible. For the Jiva is imperfectible because the Jiva will never be perfect. There is no perfection in the world. The Jiva, the individual, your individuality is always going to be a work in progress. Like, anybody know that old show, This Old House? Something always needs. There's always something that needs to be fixed or nailed. Huh? Repaired, yeah. Everything rusts or disintegrates. Everything needs attention. Your body needs attention. Even your mind. You're keeping your mind in a somewhat cheerful mood if you can. You get old, you get backaches, whatever. You get a headache. Everything needs some attention. Everything. Your Jivatvam will never be perfect because it abides in time, and everything in time disintegrates eventually. So, to address entropy, you put energy into the system, right? And so the body is a constant repair project in a sense. Let me fix up my mind. Let me address all the things that need to be fixed. Now, where did this foot ache come? Where did this heel spur come from? Oh, now where did this toothache come from? Or where did this habit, this mental state come from? Anyway, you're infinitely imperfectible as a jiva. And so you earnestly do what you can, and you let go. Right? The operative word for sannyasi is let go. Accept, do what you can, and let go. Right? Lord, give me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the will and the power to change the things I can, and the serenity and the wisdom to know the difference. Yeah, there's something there. You as Atma are absolutely imperfectible, right? You have no potentiality to become perfect because Atma is already perfect. Atma is gunaless. It has no attributes. It has no mala. It has nothing sticks to it. It's just nitya shuddha, ever pure, right? It's ever fresh. Shankaracharya gives an interesting meaning to the word Purana. Purana means ancient, right? But he defines it as ever fresh. In the second chapter, there's a verse that talks about Purana, ever fresh. That's beautiful. Can you develop? We desire our mind to sort of reflect the nature of the Atma, right, as part of a sadhana, so that it becomes natural that the mind reflects the nature of the self. They say that the attributes of a jnani are the sadhana for a sadhaka, right? So if a jnani is naturally cheerful, then the practice for someone who is a jnani in training, which you all are, you can work on promoting that state of mind that is cheerful so that it eventually becomes natural. You can always repair your costume. You can always get a healthier body. You can always quiet the mind. You can always open your heart. You can always reduce your reactivity. You can always see through the folly of your ragas and dveshas. But you as Atma are in no need for repair. And where does the aham pratyaya land, right? Does it land on the this old house, which is ever in need of repair, or does it land on the atma, which is perfectly fine the way it is? Actually, the body and mind are perfectly fine the way they are. So the difference is, people have asked, if I accept everything, if I accept other people as they are, won't they walk all over me? If I accept the current state of the body, does that mean I don't go to the doctor if I have an ache? Right? The acceptance is emotional. What you do is different. You accept and you act. You accept and you act. You can still effect change in the world, even though, from a state of being a samsari, a non-samsari. Most of us try to effect change in the world because we need the world to be different. We can still effect change in the world and be perfectly content. It's challenging because anger makes people act, especially like in the political. You see this in the political arena a lot. The more angry you are, the more you go out and protest or whatever you do, and so it's a motivating factor. Where's the motivation? Where's the motivation for me to get an A in this class so I can become a doctor like mom wants? Your role as an Indian child, is very flexible, right? You know that your parents will tell you, you can become a doctor or an engineer, right? What's the problem? A doctor or a doctor? So really what he's saying here, don't be a mudha drishti. Don't be one whose vision is diluted. Even as a mumukshu, how do you frame your imperfections in regard to your adhikaratvam, right? We want to promote in ourselves, nurture in ourselves, viveka and vairagya and shama, the ability to create a quiet mind, a dhamma, ability to choose how I act in the world, right? Uparati, an ability to have a contemplative mind. Shama, dhamma, uparati, titiksha, an accommodation of what the world brings to me in terms of environment. Kshanti is accommodation, is an interpersonal, social accommodation. Shama, dhamma, uparati, titiksha, shraddha, right? We want to open our heart to the teaching. I always have to start from the beginning. So this is part of what's called the sadhana chaturshaya. What a mumukshu, the characteristics of one's personality and character that it behooves one to attend to and nurture for the sake of becoming a fitting vessel for this knowledge. And so viveka, vairagya, and then there's 6, and I go through them in my mind every time. Shama, dhamma, uparati, tiksha, shraddha, samadhanam. Samadhanam is to be nurtured. Samadhanam is related to samadhi. But it doesn't mean you need to go into samadhi. Once I was visiting an ashram in India, and there was a Swami there who, the person whose ashram it was, said, "Can you look after this Swami? He appears to be going into instant ad hoc samadhi. So can you just follow him around to make sure he doesn't fall down?" Samadhanam just means a contemplativeness, right? The ability to create a quietened mind, and so you can revel in this knowledge. And then the last quality is mumukshutvam, an intense desire for moksha. But what if these are imperfect? You accept and you work on it, right? Your mumukshutvam, your desire for this knowledge, is the gasoline that keeps you attentive to your values, to ahimsa. It said that ahimsa paramo dharma. The highest dharma is ahimsa. And ahimsa, this akara before, himsa means injury. We usually think of ahimsa to be non-injury towards other things. That's just a slice of the pie. It does mean abhava, himsa yaha abhavaha. So this nunj, this prefix ab, has 6 different meanings. So it can mean the absence of something, and it can mean the opposite of it. And so the virodhi. So it can mean himsayaha abhavaha or himsayaha virodhi. So what is the domain of non-injury? To other people, in financially, interpersonally, socially, physically, emotionally, may I be harmless, right? And towards myself, may I cause no harm for myself. May I eat, may I exercise, may I do what it may, take care of the body, may I take care of my mind and my heart, etc. And what's the opposite of himsa? Compassion. At least that's how I translate it, right? And so the area that we focus our compassion on is other people and ourselves, right? May I practice compassion towards myself. May I accept my own foibles, my own imperfections. May I not beat myself up. Give myself enough space to be imperfect and enough attention and intention to work on those imperfections, right? So, those imperfections belong to whom? Belongs to your clown costume, right? And so, attending to gaining self-knowledge of the truth of yourself and abandoning false self-notions of who you are can be seen to be analogous to abandoning the notion that there's actually water in the mirage, right? Abandoning the idea that there's snake actually on the rope. You recognize that you are actually Nitya Shuddha Buddha Swabhava, one of Shankaracharya's favorite phrases. You are timeless, you are Nitya Shuddha, ever pure, you are Nitya Buddha, ever awakened, Nitya Mukta, ever free. And you try to make this your living reality, not samsari, right? But you don't say aham samsari, you say aham brahmasmi, right? We use our intellect in a very self-defeating manner, right? When something comes up, we use our intellect just to convince ourselves that we really are a bad person, we really are unworthy, we really are limited, we really are sad. When we become sad, the mind, like the tongue going to a sore tooth, the tooth goes back to it again, and the tongue goes back to the sore tooth again and again. If someone injures us emotionally somehow, the mind habitually goes back and back. There may be something useful to that, to be processing that, I guess, to try to work things out. But oftentimes, instead of using our intellect to process and release the emotion, we use our intellect to support and buoy that problematic emotion, right? So we want to be careful where we place our attention and what we attend to with our intellect. So, saha nitya upalabdhi sarupaha aham atma. I am that atma. That's probably more than enough today. Yeah. It's the bottom of the hour, almost 5 more minutes. We can keep this. We can conclude now, and people can go and get some rest, or we can entertain a question or two. I see. And your vote is? So let me say, if you're tired, I know it's been a long day. If you're tired, feel free to leave. If you want to stick around for a couple questions, then we can entertain a couple questions. And I think we have 2 people. I'm sorry to say, I think we have 2 people ahead of you. Yeah, so go ahead, please. No. Oh, she has. Go ahead, Ganesh. Yeah, that's fine. And then we'll come to you.
This is an off question. It's I'm curious about something you had mentioned, that you chanting the Sri Rudram in the hospital, you were advised not, it might interfere in the healing process. I was wondering why. Why would it interfere in the healing process?
What was the last part?
Why would it interfere in the healing process?
Yeah, what was your last statement?
When you were chanting the Sri Rudram in the hospital, the doctors advised you not to do so because it would interfere in your healing process.
I got that part, yeah.
So why? Why would it interfere in the healing process? I'm just curious.
I don't have a clue. I'm not an Ayurvedic doctor. Anybody study Ayurveda here?
But why would the doctors know that?
Huh?
Why would the doctors know that?
Ayurvedic, dances to its own rhythm. These alternative medicines, I've tried all sorts of alternative medicines for all sorts of things, and none of them have ever done anything beneficial for me. I don't know, maybe it's just my constitution. To be frank. I wish... What do you say?
It's like a homeopathic doctor telling that Ayurvedic medicine is not good.
Yeah. I'd love it if homeopathy, many people in India swear by homeopathy. I went to, once when I was young, in high school I think, I went to a homeopathist. He was actually a medical MD, and the insurance actually covered it, which is very curious. And one curiosity is that I had a problem because the two things you're not allowed to smell if you get a homeopathic remedy is coffee, which is fine, I didn't drink coffee, and camphor. But I was doing arati every day, in which you burn camphor, so I had to stop doing that. The other thing is you want it to work because it's such a balanced system, You have an illness, you see the symptoms, you find an herb or some remedy that creates those same symptoms, you dilute it until nothing's left, and you drop it on a sugar pill, and that's the remedy. Some magic must be going on. And it was invented by a fellow named Hanuman. He wasn't Indian, he was German, I think. You think, it was invented by Hanuman, and it seems like a very elegant system. I went to this homeopathic doctor, and the way they diagnose you, they don't look at you, you fill out a questionnaire. And I filled it out, and I forget what I went there for, acne or something, I don't know. And I filled it out, and he came back and he asked me this question. Are you sure you're not afraid of the devil? If you were afraid of the devil, I have the perfect remedy for you. Sorry, doc. No, I'm not afraid of the devil. And then he yelled at me when I came back to him. He gave me some remedy. And I came back, and I said, I'd fasted for 3 days and my wart went away. And he said, you should not do that because you're interfering with the healing process. Anyway, I've never had good luck with them. I went to an Ayurvedic hospital. And they said, no outside food is allowed at all. Okay, no outside food. And they serve very sattvic food, little spices, not a lot of salt and whatnot. And after a month, I was about to leave, and I said, I'm so glad that I'll be able to have some fruit now. And they said, you could have had fruit. They were so sad because I didn't notice any change. And I told them that. And he started writing, so you've seen improvement? I said, no, I haven't seen. Can we just write it down? I said, no, sorry. I'm sorry to be so blunt. I know this isn't the answer you want, but I didn't see any change. And so I'd prefer that you write that down. And he kind of, okay, I'll write it down. So I don't know. Anyway, TMI, please.
Yes, Swamiji. My question is that at times it feels somewhat overwhelming that I feel that it could take many more lifetimes to overcome the samsara accumulated in previous lifetimes and in this lifetime to reach the point where moksha is available to me. And especially when you're living life and you see that you're not as detached from emotion as you should be and things like that. And you see learned Swamijis such as yourself that have devoted their life to this and you're not able to do that, and sometimes you feel like you're not going to attain the purity of mind in this lifetime necessary for moksha. And then I've also heard you say a couple of times to put aside that notion that you won't be pure enough to achieve moksha in this lifetime, that it's for everybody.
Yeah.
So could you just elaborate how it is available for everybody at any stage?
Yeah. It's a wonderful song. Don't worry, be happy. You know? Yeah. Who's the singer? I forget his name. Very talented fellow. He did all sorts of things a cappella. Just amazing. Bob. Anyway. Gosh, if only each of us had the entire internet on a flat piece of glass in our hands, we could look and search, Anyway. So the question is, I don't know who out there in the ether and the Ethernet are listening. The first question was, why did the Ayurvedic doctor say that? Sounds like the beginning of a joke, Why did the Ayurvedic doctor say, I don't think I said this here. A priest, a Buddhist monk, and a rabbit walk into a bar, and the bartender looks at the rabbit and says, I think you're in the wrong place. That's a joke. Boom, boom. Anybody understand what the joke is? The setup is usually a priest, a Buddhist monk, and a rabbi walk into the bar. Anyway, sorry. So the first question was, why would an Ayurvedic doctor tell me to stop chanting Rudram? What does it have to do with Ayurveda? And I said, I don't know. And your question is, you feel like moksha is far away because your purification journey is going slow, and it seems like you'll never be pure enough to gain this knowledge. Is that the gist of it?
Yes, pretty much.
We all sell ourselves short. So, where does that impurity lie? That's the gist of all these classes, right? And when you say, I will never be pure enough, samsara is so deep, we want to revisit. This is why the admonition is, Paunav punyena shravnam kuryat. Come and listen again and again and again and again until it becomes obviously clear what's being taught. And when we see the agitation, the quote-unquote impurities, the strong desires, especially the self-deprecating talk, the talk that says, I will never, it helps to have a good sense of humor about oneself. Maybe that's why some of us joke so much, right? And I use the analogy of a clown, right? If you can laugh at those thoughts that come by, those defining thoughts that say, I'm not going to be good enough. I am too impure. I'm never going to be, I'm never going to be saintly enough to gain this knowledge. The knowledge is recognizing that the non-saintliness can be present and you can be free even in the presence of that lack of saintliness. So the key is to reframe what you're positing about oneself, to see that whatever you say, other than aham brahmasmi, I am just pure awareness, existent awareness, I am Atma, anything that the ahankara, we use the word ahankara. In colloquial usage, ahankara in India often means egoity, right? So it means a bloated sense of self. That's not how we use ahankara. We use it technically as this I thought, this I notion, this notion that I have, right? And it's the thing that keeps trying to predicate superimpose the Atma upon the Anatma, the Anatma upon the Atma, right? And an unenlightened Ahankara will keep saying, I am, and then all the stuff you don't want to be, or even the stuff you want to be. I'm smart, I'm stupid, I'm holy, I'm unholy, I'm agitated, I'm quiet, I'm dull-witted, I'm dull-minded, I'm not worthy, I'm hyper-worthy, right? You have to be careful of people who use constant hyperbolic language. I'm not pointing anybody out specifically. But to attend to that thought process. So what I mentioned, I am the witness of all passing thoughts, that is something to... Puja Swami was careful about this because he saw that you could create a disassociation, right? You are not the thought, but the thought is you. So it's a two-way street. But still, to recognize in real time that the thoughts are passing phenomena, if you can rest in that understanding and vision, there's a great deal of freedom there. No matter what the vocabulary or the sentences or the paragraphs you're saying about your so-called I, you can say, Swami said you can be endlessly entertained by what the mind presents. And much of what the mind presents is utterly laughable. It's silly. And so if you can have a sense of, to be alert to what the mind is presenting requires intention and attention. Right? And this is why if you sit in the morning in meditation, you can make the sankalpa or make the intention. May I be alert to the dynamics of my mind. Right? May I rest comfortably as one who can see the flow of thoughts, right? And not grab onto them and say, oh, there's a thought, that thought is me, right? And so with the intention of doing that, I'm doing the sankalpa, with that intention, then I can try to be attentive. And if you do this enough, eventually you will have some space around the thoughts. You can develop an inner spaciousness. Some people practice a deliberate 2 or 3 second delay between what they think and what they say. That's a nice practice, right? But it requires a certain presence and a commitment to that practice. And that's not exactly what I'm saying, but to try to bring about a presence of mind, and to be able to do that, some practices might be a sitting meditation for some time, once or twice a day, or the repetition of a mantra. And as I said, if you can observe your relationship with a thought within meditation, we can try to bring that same relationship to all thoughts and all emotions at the time. So like I said, unfortunately, I was in satsang, I told you, in Rishikesh, and I told the students to not believe a word that their guru tells them to understand. Maybe I should say, don't believe a thing your mind tells you unless it's saying, I am perfectly fine, I am free, everything else is just as it is. I accept my imperfections. They don't define me, right? And so one has to sit with that and be alert, right? Because the mind is constantly trying to encase us in a vision of ourselves which is not true. So practice alertness and listening again. So in a very first-person way, so that when you hear, you are just pure awareness, and everything else is just ephemera, so to speak, all thoughts and self-notions other than I am Brahman, until that starts becoming understandable in a very personal way. Yeah. And the samsara is what you bring to it. Some people told me, I'm entrenched in samsara, which means I'm married. Sometimes, isn't that a colloquial usage of samsara to mean you're married, It doesn't mean to be. Some people say, I have some samsara to attend to today. You don't attend to samsara, you attend to vyavahara. You have business to transact. You got to go shopping or the doctor or, get gasoline or something, right? That's not samsara. Samsara is a completely different beast, right? And be compassionate towards oneself. Give it some time. Especially in one's spiritual journey, you can't rip the rosebud open. You know, you have an intention to see a fully bloomed rose, a blossomed or bloom, but you can't rip it open. So the clarity will come in time, and the qualities will come in time. I think it's necessary to be very gentle with oneself. I don't know if any of that made sense, but one more question. You know how to count, right? One?
one at a time. I have three, but I'll save the other two for tomorrow. Swamiji, it's a beautiful presentation, and the way it's made an influence on everybody, at least for me, is awesome. So one quick question. In Swami Paramarthananda's book, I was just reading to prepare myself on Hastamalakiyam. He mentioned that...
that's cheating.
No, I just like him because I met him before in Chennai.
No, he does have a very beautiful book, and I lift information from that.
Yeah. No, it's just awesome. Thank you very much. So he mentioned something that Brahman is both Jada and Chetan, Sat Sadoham in Gita, it's been saying. So the difference he mentioned was that in Chetan Brahma, the alive, sentient, there is a Sukshma Sharira.
Yeah.
That's why you can see it responds to you. And the Jada, you cannot perceive Brahman as being immanent. Is that so? What is the significance? So, if everything is Brahman, so that's the way to explain that between the sentient and insentient, both are permeated through and through by Brahman, I guess one can say. Is that so Sukshma Sharira is absent in, say, the floor or the microphone, and this jivas have that Sukshma Sharira equipment. And at death, if there is a dead body, also has Brahman, but without the Sukshma Sharira, it is not able to respond. Is that a correct understanding, Swamiji?
Yeah. So Atma is Satchidananda. It's very interesting. I've never heard anybody talk about this, but this is the way I think about it. Sat, you can see, existence you can see everywhere. So Brahman is Satyam Jnanam Anantam, which can also be awareness and existence and limitlessness, or Ananda even, in that special way. You can't point to anything that you can say this doesn't exist. Pujya Swamiji said something. I don't think he saw the irony in it. He would say, the only thing that doesn't exist is non-existence. Nothing does not exist. Anyway, so you can see everything we attribute existence to. So Sat permeates everything. It should be obvious. I hope it's obvious. If not, think about it some more. We attribute existence to everything, but nothing itself truly exists, because everything itself comes into existence, obtains for a minute in existence, and goes out of existence. But existence itself doesn't change, and it's always present. There's nothing in our experience that is not that we don't attribute to existence to. The trouble is we think existence is an attribute rather than a substantive. And then people say, well, why if Atma and Brahman is Chaitanya, awareness, then, why doesn't the rock talk to me except when I go to Costa Rica and down some ayahuasca? I've never done that. Just on the record, I have not done that. And that's because the absence of a Sukshma Sharira. So the Sukshma Sharira includes is made from, Rajas and Sattva Guna. This is the model to explain that away. So these models are only meant to give us enough information to recognize Brahman. And it's like, we have the model of the five elements: Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Apaha, Prithvi, space, air, fire, water, and earth. It's not meant to be a comprehensive periodic table, but it's enough at that time. Maybe it was their physics at the time or chemistry, but it was just meant to be comprehensive enough to get a handle on the physical world and my physical self. And actually, you can see this, the tatparya, the intention of that is not to really just accurately describe the nature of the world, but able to get a handle on it so that you can understand it and put it in perspective. So we talk about, the Taittiriya Upanishad talks about these 5 elements. The Chandogya Upanishad talks about 3 elements. What gives? It's not a problem, right? Because the intention is not that. So, we say that Maya has the 3 gunas, and what comes from the sattva aspect reflects awareness, and the mind is made of sattva guna, and therefore the mind can reflect awareness. It's omnipresent, but it's not manifest everywhere due to the absence of a sukshma sharira. Or you can take it experientially and say, what experience is away from awareness? Because you can equally say there's nothing but awareness here. In my experience, which is really all that counts, what do I know or care about that's not in my experience? I can posit that things happen away from my experience. It's convenient, right? But still, what I really care about is my experience, and there's nothing away from awareness in my experience. But then what about Ananda? If Ananda really is happiness, so it seems like existence is omnipresent. Awareness manifests in sentient beings, and Ananda seems to manifest only occasionally in sentient beings. There's the same thing but talked about from different perspectives. But that's the model, is that even a chaitana thing. So you were saying that there's chaitana and achetana. Achetana means jada, that which does not inherently express awarefulness or reflect awarefulness. And Brahman, you have to kind of shift gears. Brahman being existence is evident even in the achetana vastus, even in the insentient beings. So yes, it's not for me to say this, but Paramarthanandaji is correct. I have no legs to stand on to judge what he says as being correct or incorrect. I trust that everything he says. Do you know who Swami Paramarthananda is? Does anybody not know? Anybody not know? Swami Paramarthananda has been teaching for decades. He's a wonderful, beautiful soul who has been in this tradition and teaches, I don't know how many classes a week. He lives in Chennai, aka Madras, and he's given so many talks, and many people publish their notes. And it's kind of problematic because the notes are not necessarily the best edited books, but they get the message across. And so he has been teaching for so long, and what he teaches, he has his own vocabulary about things, but his understanding, he's very learned in tradition, and he is very clear in his teaching. And so he's kind of a go-to for some of us who teach, because in my experience, Puja Swamiji, although being very logical, he kind of teaches with watercolors to paint the vision. And Swami Paramarthananda teaches in outlines. At least that's how I look at it. Yes. And when I prepare for class, I think in outlines and try to bring the watercolors to class. So many people who teach look for his texts. And he's a very simple soul. He doesn't have an ashram. I mean, simple meaning not simplistic, but he's a very gentle, loving individual who really knows his stuff. And he doesn't have an ashram, Paramarthananda. He doesn't have an ashram. He lives in a simple flat, and he goes out and teaches in various places within Madras. He doesn't travel. He doesn't have a posse that follows him around everywhere. He's just a wonderful gift to the world.
Just last clarification, Swamiji. So say Swami Dayananda, Guru Param.
So this is question.
Param Swami. No, just the extension. Extension 1.2.
Okay.
So when he sees the world, Jada and Chetan, how does he perceive a Jnani? One is with Chit, and one is Sat. Does he have Why is his world vision different
what's
than
the problem?
Agyani's?
What's the problem?
The way he relates to the world.
Huh?
He say, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. Everything is Brahman.
Yeah, everything's
with
Brahman.
Sat, with Jad and Chetan.
Yeah. The way Ajnani relates to the world that's filled with Jada, with Chaitana and Achetana, with sentient beings and insentient things, Ajnani will not talk to a rock. Right? So in the end, please don't get stuck on that. In the end, you have to say, it's all mithya anyway.
Okay.
What creation are you talking about? It's an as-though creation. So one way to look at it is that we use a dream analogy. So, but this is not beginner's Vedanta. We talk about this triputi, this triad of knower, known, and knowledge. So we spent a lot of time talking about you were the knower of the anatma. You are not a knower. You are the aware of the awared. The truth of the awarer is just awareness, right? So you remove the adhyaropa and you do the apavada. You remove the provisional dualistic perspective to reveal the paramarthika drishti, the absolute perspective. And to make that jump, and we talk about this triputi, this triad of knower, known, and knowledge, and how to resolve that they all exist on the same level of reality. Often we bring in the dream example. So in a dream, you can say, we all live in Ishwar's dream, in a sense, and we have our own little Shakti, our own Maya, to create our own dream world. And when we're in a dream, let's say we have a dream and we're walking with a friend in a forest, and we see, a squirrel or something. What's the reality of that dream? When I see the squirrel, when I see the rock, when I see the tree, when I see my friend, the astita, the existence of the dream, is really the existence of the dreamer. The whole dream world of Namarupa owes its complete reality, existence, to the reality of the dreamer. When I say in the dream, as a character I've incarnated into, I say, I am. When I look at my friend and say, you are, really, when I look at the rock and I say, it is, there are no three existences. There's only one existence upon which the rock rupa, right, the rock Namarupa, my friend Namarupa, and this character Namarupa are superimposed. There is no... The verb to be is one of the few verbs in English that conjugate. All the verbs in Sanskrit conjugate. In English, I don't know if another, I'm sure there's a few, but I am, you are, it is, right? Aham asmi, tvam assi, tat asti, in Sanskrit. It changes, but the verb to be expresses existence, right? And there are now not three existences. There's not my existence and your existence and that existence. There's only one existence. So one of my teachers once said, it's much more accurate to say, like in a dream. First, start with a dream. In a dream, if I'm aware of that reality, I can, in my dream, say, I am, you am, it am. Because there's only one amness. There's only one reality existence in the dream, and that dream is a dreamer's very reality. And if you happen to be lucid dreaming, then that becomes clear even within the dream. Right? Anybody have a lucid dream? Yeah. I once had a very interesting lucid dream. I was preparing for Swami Advayatmananda to come to San Diego. And I had a dream. Maybe it was a stress dream. I wasn't stressed out. But I had a dream that I went to the venue, and it was this funky old coffee shop that had, those spools of wire that college kids had for, I don't know if they still have it, for like coffee tables, and it had cigarette burns on it, and there was an espresso machine running in the background, and it had, it was like This is not the right venue. Old, couches with cigarette burns in it and tears. And I said, this is not the right venue for this venerated Swami to come and talk. And it all seemed very curious. And then Swami Advayatmananda walked in wearing a three-piece orange suit. And I said, something's not right here. And then I remembered, while I was in the dream, the 3 ways to tell if you're lucid dreaming is, 1, you can try to turn on a light, and oftentimes you try to turn on a light switch, the light doesn't come on. You can try to read something, because it's very difficult to read in a dream, or if you jump in the air and you stay up, you're lucid dreaming. I jumped and I stayed up, and I went, wonderful. No problem. What's the problem? No problem. And so I thought I invented the term lucid waking, because that same attitude can be taken here, right? And then I Googled it, and someone had written a book, and I didn't get the book. I don't know what it says, but I still like the idea of lucid waking. Because if you're lucid dreaming and you know that all of this is nothing but me, it owes its existence to me. The awareness that I'm expressing as the character I've incarnated into in that dream, that awareness is nothing but the awareness of the dreamer. The awareness that my friend is expressing in that dream is nothing but the awareness of the dreamer. The awareness that the squirrel is expressing is nothing but that, right? And what is the reality of that? Sat chetna bhadyeta, asat chetna pratiyeta. If it were real, it wouldn't go away upon waking. If it was unreal, I wouldn't experience it. That's not much different than here, right? And so in that context, in the dream, it all seems real, right? If someone comes and hits me on the head with a dream hammer, I get a dream boo-boo, I go to the dream hospital, and the dream doctor, not Dr. Dreamy, that's something different, but the dream doctor fixes my boo-boo. But it all seems so real. I have dream pain. How is that much different than this? Right? The thing is that we seem to have a shared reality here, whereas we tend not to meet each other and remember it in our dream world, right? But all the tripati, the knower, known, and objects of knowledge, all abide on the same level of reality, right? The dream character, the dream chitta vritti, thought form, and the dream object of knowledge all exist on this one evanescent level of reality. And that's not much different than this. And so who cares about the difference between parts of the dream that are expressing as though manifesting awareness and those that aren't? It flattens everything out to just be mithya, right? And so that appearance of these, we say that, the water, like we said in one of these verses, the one awareness is reflected in a variety of dishes of water, and that's how we can understand how sentiency expresses somehow in some situations and not others. But if you get stuck in that drishtanta, that example, then the dream example up-levels everything. Does that make sense?
It's wonderful. So that would be a great spiritual practice, lucid waking. Do the same thing while you're awake, as if you're...
Yeah, that's a jnani's drishti. Yeah, so a good spiritual practice is to become enlightened. But we still have to do what needs to be done. The interesting thing, if I were to... When I wake, so you have to play with this a little bit. If I murder somebody in a dream, the papa associated with that do not follow me into the waking state. Any action done in the dream does not stick to the waker. Any action done in the waking state does not stick to the jnani. Because the karmapala, the adrishta karmapala, belongs to the karta, the agent, the doer, and a jnani knows him or herself to be a non-agent and not to be the jiva. The sanchita karma account belongs to the jiva, and the jiva has just vanished into the creation. And so there's, as Puja Swamiji would say, there's no one left, there's no individual left to claim that bank account. So it just disappears into the cosmos. All right, enough. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. So I think we only have 2 verses left, and we have 2 more classes. We can finish the last 2 verses. I don't think any of them will take too long. We could do 2 classes, 2 verses in 1 class. People are expecting a class tomorrow morning instead of meditation. We can change that, or we can do the 2 classes at 7 and then at 8:45 do another question and answer period. Ganesh, help us understand what we should do. I see you nodding vehemently. Yes, 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 but I know what you're...
There are a lot of onliners planning their, I don't know, so probably we should keep 7 to 8, finish the class, and 8:45 to 9:45 just question and answer. No, meditation. Oh, you want meditation? Yes. Yeah,
Meditation. Well, what we could do is, because all of you wonderful people out in TV land, YouTube land, if you are watching, we could do the class in the morning and announce at that time that the next session will be meditation. Someone just pointed to their head and pointed to me. I assume that's good. Not you numbskull. That's a good... Okay, you want to do that? It's very unconventional, but hey, here we are. All right, sounds like a plan. Okay, so we'll have class tomorrow morning, and then a meditation. We have to wrap up at 9:45, and also we're doing Guru Dakshina. You know, I have some booklets to hand out. We also have to do that sort of within that same hour, right? Or do we have extra time? I think Karthik said he gave an extra 15 minutes for that, till 10, but then Swami Advayatmananda is giving another class at 10 o'clock. So if you want to see that, so class is at 8:45, the second class is 8:45 tomorrow, and we can try to have a half an hour meditation and a half an hour for Guru Dakshina. Oh, yeah, I'll give that to you. You won't be here tomorrow?
I will be.
Oh, okay. This is a...
They told me at the office, just
Oh, okay. Usually we give that at the very end of the last class.
Oh, okay. Well, do you want me to take it back and wait till tomorrow?
Yeah.
They told me at the office to give it to you whenever.
Oh, okay. I don't want to lose it. I don't want to
Yeah.
miss...
Don't want to lose it.
Yeah.
So I have a quick question.